Have you ever wondered how modern manufacturing miraculously transforms this massive mountain of raw materials into a perfectly timed, highly profitable product without completely descending into absolute madness? Well, you are in the exact right place. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to master the science of production planning and control. Picture a massive factory floor for a second. Without a solid plan, you've got missed deadlines, frustrated workers just standing around waiting for parts, raw materials going to waste, and customers angrily demanding their delayed orders. A single missing microchip or a late shipment of steel, that can literally halt a multi-million-dollar assembly line. It is a total recipe for chaos. So how do manufacturers avoid that nightmare? The answer is production planning and control. It's basically the ultimate superhero toolkit for any organization that makes a physical product. It ensures the exact right goods are produced in the exact right quantity at the absolute perfect time. It saves sanity, and it saves millions of dollars. So here is our roadmap for today. 1. The blueprint for production. 2. Types of production systems. 3. Mastering production control. 4. Strategies for aggregate planning. And 5. Impact on the bottom line. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the blueprint for production. Let's look at what happens before the action even begins. Management expert John Elbichage actually puts it perfectly. He states that production planning is the function concerned with planning, directing, and controlling the methods to be used to make products and the way in which the production facilities should be laid out. The big takeaway here? Planning is entirely a pre-production activity. It's the high-level decision-making process focused on organizing facilities, resources, and methods before a single machine is ever turned on. And this is absolutely crucial. Why? Because every hour you spend mapping out your material flow and machine placement prevents weeks of costly bottlenecks down the line. It's the strategic foundation that makes all the actual physical labor mean something. And look, production planning isn't just for massive auto plants, right? It's a completely universal activity. Whether you're building custom wooden cabinets in your garage or refining millions of barrels of oil, you need it. It dictates the sequence of your activities and how you literally lay out your physical equipment. But here is the core thing to remember. Production planning is the absolute prerequisite for production control. Think of planning as the brain of the operation and control as the nervous system. You simply can't have physical reflexes or control a process that hasn't been mentally planned out first. Moving right along to Section 2, types of production systems. Let's talk about organizing the floor. Production systems actually sit on this really fascinating continuum. We move from job processing on the low end to batch, then line, and finally continuous flow processing on the high end. And as we move across this spectrum, we're making a really fundamental trade-off. We're essentially trading high customization and low volume for low customization and massive, relentless volume. The contrast at the extreme ends of this continuum is wild. On one side, you have job processing. This is custom, low-volume work. Think of machining a highly tailored, one-of-a-kind titanium aerospace casting. Every single order is treated as a unique unit or job. On the exact opposite end, you've got continuous flow processing. This is massive, uninterrupted volume with zero divergence. Think petroleum refining or paper manufacturing, where materials continuously move through this rigid automated process. In continuous flow, stopping is literally catastrophic. A large paper mill could lose tens of thousands of dollars for every single hour a machine is shut down, which means these systems often run 24/7 for months at a time. But hey, most companies operate somewhere in the middle ground, right? Batch processing is actually super common. Think of your local bakery, making 50 blueberry muffins before stopping, cleaning the pans, and switching over to a batch of chocolate chip. You produce a set amount of similar items before retooling the machines. Line processing, on the other hand, is closer to continuous flow, but deals with discrete, individual items. This is Henry Ford's ultimate dream realized, your classic, highly synchronized assembly line making standardized products like cars, appliances, or smartphones. Okay, on to Section 3, Mastering Production Control. This is where we master execution. So, control basically happens in 5 specific chronological steps. It kicks off with planning, specifically forecasting your lead times and requirements. From there, we move to routing, then scheduling, dispatching, and we wrap it all up with follow-up and expediting. Let's break down how these steps actually play out in the real world. Let's look at Step 2, routing. Think of routing as drawing the literal, physical map for your materials. It answers the fundamental questions: what exactly are we making, how much of it, and at what specific workstation? The whole goal here is to determine the absolute most economical sequence of operations. You want to convert raw materials into finished goods by finding the fastest, cheapest path through the factory without wasting a single inch of space. Okay, got your map? Great. Now you need a clock. That's scheduling. Scheduling perfectly orchestrates the timing of your machines, your components, and your people. It's super helpful to think of this as a highly complex railway timetable. You wouldn't want two trains arriving on the exact same track at the exact same time, right? When scheduling fails on a factory floor, you get the manufacturing equivalent of a train crash. Dozens of expensive, highly skilled workers standing completely idle waiting for delayed parts, creating massive bottlenecks. Proper scheduling ensures every single task starts and ends exactly when it's supposed to.
The final pieces of the puzzle are dispatching and expediting. Dispatching is pure execution. It's giving the official green light to actually start production by handing out the work orders based on that schedule you just made. Expediting, or follow-up, is your boots-on-the-ground reality check. You are constantly assessing the actual performance happening on the floor against the plan. Expeditors are out there putting out literal fires, fixing broken bottlenecks, and keeping the whole operation moving when reality inevitably throws a wrench in the works. Let's zoom out a bit now. Section 4, Strategies for Aggregate Planning. Time to look at macro-level strategies. So aggregate planning focuses on a medium-term horizon, usually 3 to 18 months out. Because customer demand naturally fluctuates over months or seasons, managers have to figure out how to satisfy that projected demand efficiently. Think of a company making heavy-duty snowblowers. Demand absolutely skyrockets in the winter, but completely vanishes by July. How do they keep the factory running, or not running, in the summer? That is exactly what aggregate planning solves. Managers play with supply-side variables to ride these waves. They might adjust inventory levels, drastically change the workforce size, mandate weekend overtime, or farm work out to subcontractors. Let's put the two extreme aggregate planning strategies head-to-head. A pure chase strategy constantly hires and fires workers to perfectly match demand, period by period. Sure, it saves a ton on storing inventory, but it is an HR department's worst nightmare. It risks severe worker alienation, terrible morale, and sudden drops in quality. A pure level strategy is the complete opposite. It maintains a perfectly steady workforce and output rate all year round. The downside? This is the CFO's worst nightmare. During slow months, you pay a fortune to store huge amounts of unsold inventory, and during peak months, you risk massive, expensive overtime just to keep up. Because those pure extremes carry such heavy financial and cultural risks, rigid strategies almost never work in the real world. That makes the hybrid or mixed strategy the smartest way to optimize operations. A hybrid approach uses a clever combination of variables. Maybe you keep a steady core workforce but bring in temporary contract workers during the peak season rush. Or maybe you build up some anticipation inventory, intentionally manufacturing a moderate surplus during the slow months, anticipating the coming surge so you aren't caught off guard. It's all about balancing those costs and benefits. So, how do managers find that perfect hybrid mix? Well, sometimes they rely on informal trial and error, using visual tables and graphs with simplified assumptions to contrast capacity against expected demand. But when you have 50 different machines, 300 workers, and 5 overlapping product lines, trial and error just isn't going to cut it. That's when managers turn to advanced mathematical models, like linear programming. Linear programming takes thousands of complex variables and mathematical constraints, crunches the numbers, and scientifically guarantees the absolute lowest cost, most efficient production route possible.
Bringing it all home with Section 5, Impact on the Bottom Line. Let's talk about why this all actually matters. Why go through all this trouble? Because the benefits are massive. When you truly master production planning and control, you establish a systematic, highly efficient workflow. And that translates directly to on-time deliveries that keep customers fiercely loyal. By minimizing idle time and eliminating material duplication, you radically optimize how you use both your human workforce and your incredibly expensive equipment. Simply put, effective planning translates into huge, tangible gains in productivity, total efficiency, and strict cost control. You don't just eliminate the chaos we talked about at the beginning. You create a massive competitive moat that less organized companies simply cannot cross. And that wraps up today's explainer. But this is just the beginning of your real-world application. Think about everything we've covered today, from the continuum of production systems to the delicate balancing act of aggregate planning. I want to leave you with this final thought. If you are designing your own production facility from scratch today, based on the market you want to serve, which planning strategy would give your operation the ultimate edge? Thanks for joining me today. Keep learning and keep planning.